Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and I'm here with another monthly reading wrap up, this time for the month of February. I'm going to try and talk a little bit quiet. I have a cough that seems to be very triggered when I try to project, so hopefully the mic will help with this and I can talk relatively quietly and hopefully make it through this without coughing like crazy. But we're going to run through the books that I read in February and then talk about some of the books that I'm hoping to read in March. The first book that I finished this month was Grandma 19 and the Soviet Secret by Onjaki, and translated by Stephen Hennigan. This one was supposed to be for one of my Around the World in Books videos, but I ended up DNFing both of the other books that I had planned for that video, and so it never came out. That being said, I did really enjoy this book. This one is about this little kid who lives in Luanda, and there's basically this big construction project that's going on, and they find out that a huge portion of the neighborhood is going to be torn down in order for like a revitalization program to happen, basically. Like they're going to put up nice new apartment buildings and stuff like that. And him and some of the neighborhood kids decide that they're going to do whatever it takes to stop this. Back calls it a coming of age story. I guess that feels right. It's very akin to like a Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn type of a book, but set in a beach town. Lots of really unique characters. They're all a little bit quirky, and you're watching and addressing some pretty serious topics, but from the viewpoint of a small kid, and so it makes it just seem more fun. Less like they feel like they're in a spy movie and they keep talking about stuff like that, but they're like also trying to take on this like actual thing that's happening in their neighborhood. And it was just a fun time. It's a pretty short book. Would recommend. I'm a little bit sad I didn't get to do that video, but the other two books just were not the ones for me. So I decided to just scrap the whole video instead of doing a video where I read one book and then DNF'd two other ones. So that is Grandma 19 and the Soviet Secret. Quite a delightful book if you like stories along those lines and you want something that's just like a little lighthearted and fun. Would recommend. And then I started reading some books for a video that I already uploaded for continuing series. So if you want some more in-depth thoughts on like real-time reactions, that will be in that video. But the first one that I read for that one was Theodosia and the Eyes of Horus. This is book 3 in the Theodosia Throckmorton series. It's a middle grade fantasy series about this girl whose parents are, I guess, curators for a Egyptian history museum in London, and she can sense magic, and so she takes it upon herself to rid all of these artifacts that they're bringing in of their curses before they get exhibited. And she gets involved in some crazy stuff. There's like a whole conspiracy, there's some secret societies. They're just really fun books. If you want a series that just goes by really quick, has some very interesting, unique characters. I really love this series. I have one book left. This is all rereads for me. I read these when I was a kid and I've been going back through and reading them again. Overall, just super fun. Definitely one of those books where like the kids are just kind of doing a ton of stuff and the parents are just very oblivious, but when the parents do decide to get involved, they like are like actual good parents. So I think that that's good to see sometimes in kids' books, parents who actually know how to parent to a certain extent. This is the only book in the series that doesn't like have its own self-contained plot fully. It very much so sets up what's going to be happening in book 4. So I definitely need to continue the series soon, but overall really love if you want just a fun middle grade fantasy book and to like learn about some random Egyptian facts, Theodosia Throckmorton series. And then the next one I continued in that series, or in that video, was the Empire of Ivory by Naomi Novik. This is book 4 in the Temeraire series, which is a fantasy, I guess adult fantasy series, basically taking the Napoleonic Wars, but if they had dragons. And the first book follows this naval officer who is on a ship and they capture another ship that happens to be transporting a dragon egg. So they take control of this dragon egg and all sorts of adventures ensue from there. This one picks up immediately after book 3, and they're kind of in a crazy situation, and then it slows down for a bit. They learn that they've been out of England for a while at this point, off doing various things, and they finally make it back to England and figure out that some things are going pretty wrong on the English side of the war, and so they get sent off to try and find a solution, and that's what you're following in this book. It really broadens out some of the other species of dragons that we haven't seen before, and how some other cultures react to dragons. I feel like that is a huge topic after the first book. You're learning how all of these different countries and different cultures have a very different way that they view dragons, and it kind of changes their mind about maybe how they should be treating them. Dragons are very livestock treated in England, and a lot of the other countries definitely treat them differently. Dragons can talk, so there is that. But it was a good one. It was fun. We got to see some characters that we haven't seen in a minute as they go on this adventure with a kind of crew of people. Overall, really enjoyed it. This book ends at a wild point. Potentially the most danger that they've really been in. Not like immediate danger, but like things are not going great. So I'm very interested to see what happens in the next book and how they get out of the situation that they've gotten themselves in. So need to get to that one very soon. And then we went on a trip to New York. So I actually started another book, which I'll talk about after this, and then paused because it was too big. I didn't want to bring it to New York with me. And I picked up a smaller book for the plane. This is Whose Body by Dorothy L. Sayers. This is a golden age of mystery, older book from like the 1800s. It is a murder mystery about basically this guy finds a dead body in his bathroom one day, and there's this Lord Peter Wimsey who just kind of as a hobby likes to investigate crime, and his mom happens to know the mom of the guy who finds the dead body, so he gets involved and he ends up trying to solve this case. And then there's also a disappearance that he's also working on at the same time. This book took me a minute to get into. I struggled to really get my mind into the mode of understanding. It's very old English, and then on top of that, there are some pretty heavily written accents in this book that once you kind of get the hang of it, aren't too bad, but it took me a minute to get my mind into the mode of trying to read and understand what was being said with some of those accents. But once I got into it, it was a fun book. It was a very interesting plot twist at the end. I love detective novels from this era specifically because they take extra pains to make sure that everything is wrapped up at the end of the book, and you're never left with questions, you're never left with loose ends. They tie everything up neatly with a bow at the end of the books, and I really appreciate that. Overall, just a fun book. I will definitely read more books by this author. I wouldn't mind reading some more of this detective in general. Good time if you're looking for something Agatha Christie-esque, but not Agatha Christie. Great place to branch out to. And then I finished my last book for my continuing series video, and I read Blood Marked by Tracy Deonn. This is book 2 in the Legendborn cycle, which is a YA fantasy series based off of the legends of King Arthur. If you watched my continuing series video, you know I have some pretty mixed feelings on this book. I got very bored with this and very annoyed with the characters. Kind of at the end of the first book and then moving into the first half of this book, I wasn't loving it. Things picked up for me a bit halfway through this book where we had a few characters, like kind of a core group of like 4 of them that go off on their own. And at that point, I started enjoying it a bit more. I don't know how I feel about where this book ended off. There was a part of this book that I really did not think I was going to continue the series, but the ending has me intrigued, and she does a very good job at that. I do want to know, and I do find this world very fascinating. She has come up with a very cool magic system and world that isn't just something you've seen a million times. That being said, I feel like a lot of the character interactions are kind of tropey. I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan, especially of the main characters. There's 2 side characters, and I'm pretty much reading primarily for them at this point. One of them became pretty much a main character in this book, though. If you've read it, my 2 favorites are Alice and Cell. I don't love our main girl in this series. She kind of bugs me, and I said it in my continuing series video, but I really just feel like I'm missing the training montage part. She's such a hardcore chosen one, but she just like has not learned how to function in this world yet. And it's been so many pages. I think this book was far too long. But I will read the next book. We'll see. I'm not like committed to where I'm like, I love this series so much, but I will probably read the next book because I do want to know what happens. I don't know if I'll buy it. We'll see. Maybe I'll get it. Maybe I'll just end up getting it through Libby. Undecided on this one, but that is Blood Marked. I feel okay about it. It's not my favorite in the world, but it's not the worst book I've ever read. And then I read a book that is for a video that will be coming up next month, and that is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I am on to part 2 of reading Harry Potter for the first time in January or at the beginning of February. Some point I uploaded part 1 with the first 4 books. I'm now reading the last 3 books in a part 2. I enjoyed this one. I feel like it definitely was a little long and kind of dragged, but I don't know what I would say needs cut. I like, as we're getting into like the older, kind of heavier stuff, not that I have an issue, like obviously I read a lot of middle grade. I don't have an issue with like kid main characters, but I felt like the first few books in the series are just so, like they're light and they're fun, but the plot kind of is meh. And when they start to get into some of the heavier stuff, I feel like the plot does improve quite a bit. But this book did take me a long time to get through. It took me like probably almost a week to read it. So definitely a very long one. I'm glad the next book is about 200 pages shorter. But if you want my full in-depth, full spoiler thoughts, there will be a video coming out hopefully relatively soon with all of my in-depth thoughts on this one. But it was good. I'm having a good time. They're not like my favorite books ever. I think maybe if I'd read them as a kid, I would have some more nostalgia attached to them and I would like them more, but they're good. Like, I don't really have any super big complaints. They're just not like the most amazing thing I've ever read. I feel like the writing's like okay, but the world and the plot is good. I feel like I'm finally starting to get connected with some of these characters. It took a very long time for me to feel like I really liked some characters, so finally there. I'm glad about that. They're good. I don't really have a lot to say other than that. The final book I read in February is called We Used to Live Here by Marcus Clure? Not really sure how to say it. It will be on the screen. But this is a horror thriller book about this couple who buy this house out in kind of the middle of nowhere, Oregon. And it's been like a couple months. They're still working on moving in, doing some renovations. And one day, one of them is out shopping and the other one answers the door. And some people, this family shows up being like, hey, the dad's like, I grew up in this house. Would you mind if I brought my family in and showed them around? And then they just keep coming up with reasons to not leave. She's super uncomfortable. She's like hardcore people pleaser, lets them in, is like, you have 15 minutes. And then they just kind of never go. And some weird stuff starts to happen and it gets really creepy. Great premise, great setup. I loved pretty much all of this book until we got to the end. I was at like 91% of this book. I read it on the Kindle through Libby and things are going crazy. We're like really ramping up the spook factor. This is like a genuinely pretty scary book in a good way. There's some supernaturally stuff happening. And again, at about 91% of the book, I remember thinking to myself, how are we going to wrap this up in the next however much percent? And then all of a sudden it just ends and it never wraps anything up. And I just, like, we went through so much and it's like a psychological thriller. So you spend 90% of the book questioning what's real. You have no idea if the narrator's telling us stuff that's true. You have no idea what's actually happening, what's just fake, what's people's imagining stuff. Is someone going crazy or is this real? And it never tells you. You have no idea at the end of the book if any of it was real or not. Yeah, not my favorite way. Book itself, really good. The ending made me almost say it's not worth it. If you're okay with, like, just being on the ride and it being a fun, spooky time, and it doesn't matter if the book gets wrapped up, then like, yes, this book is great. But that ending is enough to make me caution anyone going into this book because it is so unsatisfying. It literally just stops and it feels like mid-story. Like, I feel like I easily would have read another 100 pages to get a conclusion on the book. But we used to live here. I don't know how to feel about it, but ending up there in worst endings I've ever read. But that is everything that I read in February. Now I want to quickly go over my March TBR. First thing, book that I'm in the middle of. I am currently reading Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. For the video I already talked about, I will be continuing the Harry Potter series with this one, and then I obviously need to finish it with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. So that's my first thing that I'm going to be tackling in March, is finishing that video and hopefully getting that out to you guys relatively soon. And then I have one other big video that I have planned for the month of March, and that is another Around the World in Books video. I'm going back to Western Europe. I have a couple of them already physically, and then the rest are currently on their way to my house. So hopefully by the time I finish my Harry Potter books, I will have the rest of those. But books that I'm planning on reading for that are going to be The Thief Lord by Cornelia Funk, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl, Wonder, I don't have the author written down, it'll be on the screen, Death Has a Thousand Doors, and Lucky Purr. So that's all going to be for a video. You'll get very in-depth thoughts on those ones and like background on them and what the plots are and stuff. Honestly, I don't even really remember what the plots are on all of these books, so those will be coming up in a video probably at the end of March. And then I have a couple other books that I would like to get through. First of all, just on continuing reading some things, probably in a couple weeks I will have a spring TBR coming out, and this is going to be part of that, so spoilers, but I need to continue reading Fablehaven. I read the first book a while ago, like a few months ago. This will be my first time ever reading Fablehaven, so I'm having a fun time with it, but definitely need to keep going on the series. I'm on book 2. And then I have a couple audiobooks that I would like to read. First one is continuing another series. This is the Penric and Desdemona series. I'm currently on book, I don't know what number this is, 8? Something like that. This is The Physicians of Vilnock. They're like a series of short stories in this larger fantasy world. I haven't read the main series, but I've been having a really fun time working through the Penric and Desdemona series. He like gets himself possessed by a demon, and then they go on all these adventures, and it's really funny. And then the last audiobook that I want to read is The Boy Who Didn't Come Home. This is going to be a very short one. Because I do have like a million other books I'm trying to read this month, but it is the like little novella that comes after the Hazelwood, before the second book in that series called The Night Country, I think. It I think was originally released as like a promotional pamphlet thing, but you can get access to it by listening to it's at the end of the Hazelwood's audiobook, and I'm pretty sure it covers, there's a part where one of the characters is like off without the one character, like you start following one and then you have no idea really what happened, and I think that this bridges that gap and tells us what's happening with that other character during that period of time in the Hazelwood. So I definitely want to continue the series. I really enjoyed the first book and I want to know what happens moving forward. I've never really heard anyone talk about the second book, so I definitely plan on continuing it, but starting with The Boy Who Didn't Come Home. It's just a little novella that I'm going to find on an audiobook. But that is my plans for March. Pretty ambitious. I have a very busy month at work, and then we hit spring break at the end of the month, and I've got some plans. So hopefully I can make all of this reading happen, because I definitely will be a bit busy. But let me know if you've read any of these books, what your thoughts are, and what books you're hoping to read in March. And I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye.